Hello everyone, we are about to begin. We are waiting for the other attendees to enter the room. I hope you are having a great day. I'm really excited for this webinar. So yeah, I hope you do as well. Having a chat with the World Baseball coach. Hello everyone for the people who just joined. We are about to begin in a few minutes. More people are entering the room. Hi everyone on this beautiful Friday. I hope you are all, although the lockdown in many countries. Tell me guys, where you're from. You can use the chat already. Good morning. Maybe good evening for some of you. So tell me in the chat where you're from. Australia, Melbourne. Hi Peter. Italy, welcome. Yeah, beautiful Gouda, Rotterdam, of course. Like that. Let's Oldenzaal, of all places. And of course, Belgium, where I live. Welcome everybody. It's good to have you here. So let's start this beautiful webinar. I'm sure you and I will never forget this year, 2020. In the future, the children will read in history books that the whole world suddenly stopped in 2020. It's still unbelievable to understand this. It could have been a movie year, or maybe in the near future we are going to the theaters to see this movie. Anyway, because the world is standing still, this not means that we as humans have to stand still, do we? This is the best time to inspire and to motivate each other. Focus on your strength, not your weakness. Do what you are good at. In business, commit with your team to why you do it. Care, share, give, and support each other, and do not forget, pay it forward. You cannot do it alone. We must do it together. That's why we organize these interactive free power webinars with the most inspiring people around the world. For those who just joined us in this webinar, hi everyone. Thank you for being in this power webinar. We started a week ago. This is already our 4th free power webinar. Please let me know in the chat if this is your first time, or maybe your second time, or your third time, or your 4th time. And for sure, I already can tell you there are more to come. Next week, we will be again, next week, it will be again an amazing week with 2 most inspiring power webinars. 2, unfortunately, in Dutch, but maybe we do them later in the year in English. My name is Maurice van der Kant, the host of this webinar, CEO of the Speakers Bureau 𝒂𝒔𝒆𝒄𝒌𝒆𝒄 in Maastricht, and since last year, I'm also the proud founder of bookingworldspeakers.com. Bookingworldspeakers.com is a community platform to share the stories of purpose-driven speakers around the world in a much faster and easier way, with more people and with event organizers in particular. We mainly focus on mission-driven speakers, the speakers who are the story, and who sincerely want to add value to people and society. With this in mind, we grow together in an ecosystem, an environment in which we, and even the speakers, can continue to learn from each other and with one another. I believe that we can only create a better world when we do it together. A world with more confidence, more care for each other, more giving, and above all, more humanity. In short, less I and more we. In that world, I would like to live with my wife and children. I hope you do too. Why are we organizing these free webinars? For those who now joined, as I already said in the beginning, right now we really need each other. We can only get through this period if we do it together. And above all, each other what we are good at. Due to the coronavirus, not only the speakers and the event world are at a standstill, the whole world is at a standstill. Our goal today is to reach and inspire as many people as possible in the world. We want to motivate you and give you a positive message from human to human. With the knowledge of our speakers, we want to offer you practical tools that will put you into action immediately. The world is standing still for a moment. This certainly does not mean that we as humans must stand still. As Darwin once said, it's not the strongest, not the smartest, or the fastest, but the one that can best adapt to changing circumstances. That survives. This saying is a best connection to the main person of this webinar, Brian Farley. We are about to start. You can use the chat function, of course, you already did. You can use the Q&A for questions. It will be a very interactive webinar, what I most like, so please feel free to ask any questions for Brian Farley, of course. The very important thing is, of course, when you have internet connection problems, there's a big button in the top of your screen, and click on that, and it will solve the problem. Let me introduce Brian Farley. No, wait. I'm going to do something else, and I invite him. I will share with you the video once again, and then I will invite Brian Farley.
You deserve this. You deserve this. You deserve to be here.
En deze bal, iedereen weet het.
You shut it fucking down. That's how we play.
Die bal gaat diep en ver.
That son of a bitch is trying to take that medal off your chest. It's personal.
Bal aan de binnenkant. Perfect.
Guys, ready? Guys, ready? Here's your opportunity.
Van Nistelrooy ziet er Nederland school. Jonathan Schoolhoff aan de rechter tussendoor. Nederland op voorsprong in de WK-finale. 1-0.
Brian, are you there? Hey, Brian.
Hey, Morris. How are you, man?
How's your wife doing, by the way?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, super. Always gets a laugh, right? I mean, I think we ought to let everybody know a little bit of background of that story. I mean, Morris and I met a number of years ago on one of our journeys down to Spain for a speaking presentation opportunity that I was doing. It was one of the first times we'd actually worked together, and we were on the plane together, hanging out, and it was obviously a very professional thing. So we were all trying. In any case, I was trying to be very professional about it. And at one point, I was reaching down for something in my bag, and to that point, we'd been, very formal with each other and professional. And then all of a sudden, as I was reaching in my bag, he just kind of come out and just asked me how I was with my wife, and it just struck me as very odd and got me to laugh. And relax, and we've been kind of using that as our opening statement with each other ever since. I don't know if that's how you remember it as well, Morris, but that's my fond memory of our friendship, which has now lasted many years. Now it's about 5
I still remember your face when you were looking at me. I had to go to the restroom immediately because it was.
I have that effect on a lot of people.
The funny thing, I'm not sure how many people are into the sport of baseball, of course, and I had to do that before the video, but maybe. We never know. We can do a poll, of course. So I publish a poll, and please answer the question. So who was in the finals against the Dutch national baseball team?
That's a tough question.
Still.
Who did we win the championship from?
Tell me, was it Japan?
Japan, USA, Cuba, South Korea.
Yeah.
Anybody know? Is anybody there?
So some USA, some Japan. Most watched the video very well. It was Cuba, was it?
Yes, overwhelmingly. There you go. Nice. Yes, it was. And actually, we beat them twice in 3 days, which was pretty amazing. They had actually never lost to the same team twice in one tournament. We were the first team to beat them at that point, twice in the same tournament. So yeah, pretty special moment for us. Obviously, great team, the Cubans, and to beat them twice in 3 days was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Coming back to your story, I still don't get it, Brian. I really, please, you must help me. The number one sport in the Netherlands is, of course, football, or as you name it, soccer in America. And we never in history won the World Cup. And then you, as a crazy American guy, are coming to the Netherlands and made the national Dutch baseball team world championship. I think most Dutch people even didn't know that we had a national baseball team. So tell me, where did it all start? Was it a hard journey going there? I love to share this with the attendees.
Sorry, it's hard journey getting to the championship, or the whole journey?
Maybe go back into your life in America. Where did it all start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, obviously, I saw a number of the names that popped up when the chat function kept going, started. So I saw a number of baseball fans in there. So thank you. Hi, guys, everybody on the baseball side. But number of people that aren't familiar with the sport. Yeah, I grew up in the Boston area. I was a jock, as we call them. You know, Americans, we love to play sports. So I played 3 sports in high school, which most of us do. And American football, basketball, baseball. Baseball was my best sport. I was a pitcher. I had the opportunity to, I was very effective. So I got a scholarship to go to school over there at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, a very good academic school, but also a great baseball program. Played for them. Ended up getting drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals, which is a great organization. In 1982, I played there for 5 years. I don't know about people that don't know about baseball. You have to understand it's organizational baseball in America is that you start out at rookie ball in your first year, then you move yourself through the organization in steps. So the steps are rookie ball, A ball, double A, triple A, and all the way to the major leagues. And I didn't make it to the major leagues. I made it to double A. I had an arm injury that kept me from making it to the big leagues, which is kind of code for I wasn't good enough. But in any case, at that time, I also looked at saying, okay, well, what am I going to do now? I was 26 years old. Am I going to go to work, or am I going to still try to pursue something in baseball? And I know this will come to a shock to all you people out there, knowing how open-minded we Americans are, but I didn't know they played baseball in other countries. And at that time, obviously, the big connection for me was this place that was really mysterious was Australia, right? It was down under. This was before the internet, So I was always really intrigued by this place that was so far away. And of course, my perception of Australia was based on 3 things, right? It was Skippy the kangaroo. It was based on Men at Work, right? I come from a land down under, right? And of course, Crocodile Dundee, which was a big hit, obviously, as a movie. And that's not a knife, mate. This is a knife, you know. And I saw we had some Australian people there. And good day to you. Great to see you guys. Wonderful memories of my time in Australia. Spent 3 seasons in Adelaide, but had the opportunity to travel throughout Australia. Fantastic time. Thank you. In any case, I go to Australia. Obviously, their winter is our summer, and vice versa. So I got there and played in that league. Wonderful time. And then I thought, well, let me see what I can do to do the same thing in Europe. So I sent my CV, my resume out to 3 countries where I knew they played baseball. That was Holland, Germany, and Italy. I got one response from this great town just next to Haarlem in the Netherlands called Heemstede. And the team was called Racing Club Heemstede, 𝒔𝒔𝒆𝒆. And 𝒔𝒆𝒆 had been in the 3rd division of Dutch baseball for approximately 16 years or so before I got there. I just want to tell you, people, 3rd division Dutch baseball, not very good. We weren't very good. We made a lot of mistakes. We didn't, you know, if you hit the ball hard, people would clap. That give you some idea how the expectations were a little low. So I was there to kind of raise the expectations. And I remember arriving at the airport. Obviously, I was just as naive and ignorant about the Netherlands as I was about Australia. So my associations, my connections to the Netherlands were based on windmills and tulips, wooden shoes, of course. I knew about the finger in the dike, but I was also a single young man, so I also knew about the red light zone. I knew about Heineken, of course. So I had all these perceptions, all these filters going on when I arrived in the Netherlands, and I was greeted at the airport in the morning by a very well-dressed gentleman, and he was the treasurer of the team, and he was going to take me to meet the chairman and the secretary. And when I showed up at the airport, he was, as I said, a well-dressed gentleman in about 60 years old or so. Didn't speak a lot of English. I spoke, of course, no Dutch. And you know how when you're trying to connect with people, you use body language, you use gestures, you try to pick out a word to try to make sense of what they're saying. And you're just trying to connect, you know. And at a certain point, I asked him, you know, what do you do for a living? And he says, oh, I work at the bank. And I said, oh, well, yeah, that's a great job for a treasurer. It makes sense. And I said, so which bank do you work at? And he says, oh, I work for the Rabobank. And of course, in my head, I was like, I can't understand this place. This is the craziest town or craziest country I've ever been to, right? I mean, who in the heck is ever going to put their money in a bank called Rabobank? So for me, that was just, you know, absolutely crazy. I obviously went on to understand how great an institution the Rabobank is. But at that point, it was just trying to make sense of things. So perception could get you in a little bit of difficulty. I also remember my first time, he took me to the canteen to meet the chairman and the secretary. And I walk in, and there's this gentleman. It's about 10:30 in the morning. There's this gentleman sitting at the bar with a bottle of Heineken on the bar already. So I'm like, okay, that clicks with my perception of the Dutch. And he looks over at me, and he looks at me and goes, hey, hot shot, come over here. And that was his kind of nickname for me. And as I'm walking over to see him, the craziest thing is that the secretary comes out of the kitchen, and he's doing one of this. And he's rolling this thing, and I'm thinking, oh my God, these guys are, you know, this is Holland. They're gonna smoke marijuana
before you brand our beautiful country in the wrong way to other people.
Well, you know, it's got an amazing, tolerant country. So I mean, for me, it was very unique. So I had this perception that this guy was obviously, and I said, sir, you know, I don't. I said, that's not for me. That's not for me. I don't do that. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, no, I don't smoke marijuana. And he says, oh, it's not marijuana, it's a shaggy. And I said, listen, I don't know why you want to name marijuana after Scooby-Doo's best friend, but I'm still not going to smoke this. Anyways, it was fun. It was great. So about 2 weeks into the season, the coach quit. We were a pretty tough team. We were pretty bad. And they asked me if I wanted to take over the coaching. And actually the first time in my life I was responsible for someone else. Everything up to that point had been about me, very selfishly, all about my own self-interest and what was I'm going to get out of everything. And all of a sudden I was responsible for 15 other guys. And to me, that was my first leadership role. And what I did is I just naturally, did what I thought was normal, is I started to share my knowledge and my wisdom and my experience with the other guys. And I started to witness their growth, the growth of these guys. And it really gave me a kick to know I was making a difference in that way. And so I was kind of hooked on coaching. Guys were just getting better. And I think that's an important part, Morris, is that, I happened to grow up in a country where baseball was king. So I was much more fortunate. I was given better materials. I was given better coaching, better facilities, better opponents, better teammates in order to grow. And so I was constantly challenged, constantly on the edge of my comfort zone. And that facilitated my evolution as a ball player. And the guys over here, they really didn't have that. This was, as I said, before the internet. So guys were really struggling to get the knowledge of the game over here. But one thing I didn't have 1 gram more of than these guys was a passion for the game. They loved baseball as much as I did. They just didn't happen to have the opportunity. So here I was in a great position to give my knowledge and wisdom and understanding of the game to these guys. And I could see the growth in them. And it was just wonderful to feel that, And that is basically the core of what we call authentic leadership. It's giving of your qualities, your skills, those things that are unique to us, gifts, if you want, that you have as a person. And all of us have unique gifts, and we give it to the environment in order to grow that environment. And we see that growth, we witness it, and we have this wonderful feeling that we're making a difference. And to me and to all of us existentially, that's really important to us. That's the key, is to feel that you matter, right? The Dutch call it er toe doen.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful.
Right. You made in your life already many important decisions. How was it for you from changing your country to a very small country like Holland? You leave your family, of course, in the States. That is a change, of course. What did it do to you as a person?
Well, I was fortunate, as I said, to come to a country where I was welcomed and I was brought into the team. So I got to meet people and interact with people, and I had a purpose. So I had connection with that.
What was your purpose? Right. What
was
your purpose? Clear. What was your purpose?
Well, as I said, as soon as when I first got here, my purpose was just to enjoy traveling around and seeing the country and trying to use baseball as a passport to see the world. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I started coaching, I really felt a connection to it. I really felt it draw me in. Mm-hmm. And then I knew my purpose was to share my gifts, share my skills with others in order to grow people and really try to help people reach their potential. And I've been doing that ever since. It really gives me a lot of happiness, a lot of fulfillment. So it's basically where I go when I want to feel energy and happiness and fulfillment, is to connect with people.
Was it for you hard to find your purpose?
No, because obviously there are different types of people in your life and groups that you're connected with, and that purpose can evolve and change a little bit as we grow and as we evolve ourselves, obviously. But the core remains the same. The core remains is, okay, what qualities do I have as a person? What do I like to create in my environment? And how do I use what I've got in order to try to create those things? And that's kind of what we call mission-driven behavior, right? It's like, what do I really want to grow in my environment, and what qualities do I have to make that happen, and then set about trying to do that. And I call that,
take the first step, of course, because on the other side of the screen, a lot of people in the world are in lockdown at the moment. Some don't know what to do, how to do it, and need a lot of inspiration, motivation, and that's also the reason why we share people who already did it in life, who already experienced it. So we can start with questions from the.
I see some nice comments from people. I see Patrick Filfoy, who I know is an excellent baseball player, by the way. And the purpose of life is to find your gift. The meaning of life is to give it away. It's fantastically said, and I couldn't agree more. And
Yeah.
I see
Thank
golf
you.
with a great sense of humor working at the Rabobank. Thank you for that. I really appreciate the sense of humor.
Yeah. What does we have 3 topics. The focus, of course, we can talk about, I think, many hours with you, because I'm having always a very good time with you. I think life is an experience. Life is a joke as well. So we must be finding our happiness even this time. And I hope we can have a chat with all the people who join this webinar. But what does success mean for you?
Yeah, success is living a life when you feel that you matter, that you're making a difference, and that to me is at its core. And how do you get evidence that you're making a difference is the way in which your environment is influencing you, and you influence your environment, and that's that connection with people that gives you a sense that you're making a difference. That's success to me, is when I can give and see other people grow, and I know I played a role in that. That really makes me feel good. I mean, when you look at that video at the beginning, I always get goosebumps, and I've seen it, I don't know, over 500 times probably, and it never fails to give me goosebumps, you know, the 𝒂𝒃𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 moment. And then that's because I recognize, you know, what everybody sees there is the achievement, but what I recognize is the journey. And so success is about the journey, and enjoying that journey of going towards something you really want, and being connected to that, because it's really important that you're connected to what you want in order to achieve it. And so basically success to me is connecting to something you desire and going after it by looking at the barriers that are holding you back, and then trying to reverse engineer a way to get to what you want by knocking down those barriers. So for us, it was about, you know, controlling the controllables.
What you're telling is it's the same what you did with that Dutch team, of course.
Yeah,
getting them in the flow. Tell me more about that. How did you get them in the flow? And
well, I mean, the flow itself is a complicated thing, but in short, you know, the flow is when you're actually engaged in something you desire to have, and you're stretched. You're outside your comfort zone trying to make it happen. But it starts out as an understanding that in order to reach flow, you have to want to do something. And so it has to do with growth. It has to do with stepping outside your comfort zone. When you step outside your comfort zone, that's a growth moment. But it's also an area which is, you know, not something you're automatically going to have immediate success with. So flow is about getting into what you're doing. It obviously releases this chemical reaction in your brain, right? The dopamine, the desire drug, along with cortisol, the adrenaline drug, which puts you into this a hyper alert state. And it's a very happy state because you're doing something that's really challenging, but really something you desire to do. So yeah, we look at, in that case, we're looking at a kind of a mindset, and the mindset is more focused on the things I control, like the process, the task, and my behavior. That's how I get into flow, by being in control of things that I do control and not worrying about those things that I don't. So not always being focused on the reward or the outcome or the result, but actually focused on what do I control here, and then getting into it. You know, it starts when we're kids. You know, we receive praise from our good meaning people that give us praise, like our parents and our coaches and our teachers. They praise us for our performance. But the danger is, if there's a lot of praise that's on results only, then the child attaches the significance of the result to their own self-image. And that's a dangerous thing, because if I'm always asking my child when he gets home, how did you score on a test? And he says, I got a 7, and he sees me react like, hey, that's not bad. And if he says a 9, I'm like, whoa, you're awesome. That's fantastic. Then obviously the child's not stupid. He wants my praise, and he wants to keep those 9s. But as he gets older, those 9s can be dangerous, because it makes you want to stay in this comfort zone, because you want to guarantee a result rather than exploring how good you could be in something you have talent with. But because you're stuck with this fixed attribute of looking smart or looking fast in sports or being strong, wow, you're the strongest guy. Well, if you come up against somebody that you think might be stronger, you may not want that challenge, because you're constantly fixated on trying to look like you're the strongest. Whereas the growth mindset, or the growth people, they're looking at the process. They're looking at, you know, the energy they put into something. They're looking at effort. So they're looking at controllables. You know, if I work hard, if I grind it out, if I really put my heart and soul into this, I can see growth, and I can see that I can reach a potential within the things I'm really connected to and talented with.
Rob Newton asked, was there a moment when you hit the rock bottom? And if so, how did you respond?
Well, I mean, I've hit rock bottom a few times. I mean, you know, this is obviously a very challenging time for everyone out there. We're obviously facing adversity that we didn't see coming, which of course adversity is a lot of times not something you see coming, but this is on an extraordinary scale. You know, it's a pandemic throughout the world. During the World Cup, we were in the flow the whole time. We won 14 of the 15 games. We really didn't have that moment where we were really knocked down. So we kept on that flow, but obviously then, you know, in difficult times, what I try to concentrate on is the things that I control. As I said earlier, you know, when you hit rock bottom, it's a kind of an opportunity to say to yourself, okay, you know, what's the worst that can happen here? What's actually my response to adversity? What am I going to do? And for me, I try to stay focused on those things that are in my control. How do I react to that? How do I push back against the fear? And how do I push back against what's going on in terms of, you know, the whole whatever situation that's causing me this pain? So I try to stay with the things I control: processes, behaviors, tasks.
In that journey to the World Cup, to winning the World Cup, in the beginning, did you, with your team, already see that cup, or did you focus on every match?
No, I mean, from the beginning, we were focused on a medal, winning a medal. We had been very close for many years. People shouldn't misunderstand that this didn't just come out of nowhere. We were a team that was very talented. We'd finished 4th in 2005, 4th in 2007, 6th in 2009. So we were on the edge of winning a medal every time, but we had difficulty beating these great giants of the game of baseball. You know, the United States, Cuba, Japan, Korea, Chinese Taipei. They're great teams where baseball is the #1 sport. Mm-hmm. So we, you know, I'm sorry, what was that? Could you repeat what you...
did you focus on the end goal, or did you set small goals?
Well, both. Obviously, we wanted to get to a place where we could dream, where we could look at what we wanted to create, and we wanted to create a medal opportunity. We've been so close. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, as I said, once you know what that destination looks like, what that intention is, then you try to reverse engineer. Okay, what's the barriers that are currently holding us back from having achieved that already? Why haven't we done it? You know, why hasn't it been done yet? And then you look at some of the things that are stopping you or holding you back, and then you look at see ways in which you can develop yourself in order to knock them down, to get closer to where you want to be.
My friend Arjan Erkel, how did you make one team from such a diverse group of people?
Well, you try to unify them behind something that they're all passionate about. You know, you want something that they all connect to. We call that the collective ambition. You know, something that we're all really connected to and know that we can't do by ourselves. So what it does is basically unifies a team behind something that they're all passionate about, and then everybody uses their individual skills, which are unique to them, but they use them in service of the collective ambition rather than service of themselves. So what we did was we really established that we had to do this together. We weren't good enough to do it individually. We had to do it collectively. And, you know, in sport, it is easier sometimes than in other industries where you have people that are in the game at that level. They all have a very strong passion for the game. So it's easier to connect on those dynamics in those areas. But it is important that you continue to remind them that it is about us serving each other in order that we can collectively win something that we individually cannot. You know, and I think it's symbolized by the fact that at the end of the tournament, having won everything, they picked an all-star game, and in the all-star game, you know, the team of 10 people, we didn't have one player on the all-star team. So that just gives you some indication of how unified we were. We weren't a bunch of individuals. We were a group of guys that really set out to do something together, and we let our selfishness on the other side. Doesn't mean we don't use our gifts and our qualities, but we use them in service of a greater good. the team. And so what happens is there comes a kind of a unifying, it becomes contagious, right? Nobody wants to let down their teammates. Everybody wants to be part of the chain, and nobody wants to be the weakest link.
Right. In this situation, of course, you also are dealing with the lockdown, and the event world is a standstill. Also, the sports world is a standstill. So one of the questions, of course, of Hans, Brian, with respect for focusing, what would you in general be your advice for those coaches, athletes in preparing for the Tokyo Olympic Games in 2021? I think it's a great question, of course, because what we all see with sports people, they have a focus, they have a deadline to deal with for that top achievement. So how do all those sports people deal with that?
Well, it's obviously something that you can't anticipate happening. I mean, I don't know when the last time that they've suspended or canceled an Olympics. It's obviously a big blow. And again, it's something that has to do with handling that adversity. Is about, okay, what is it that I actually have under my control in this situation? I don't control the decision to be made. I don't control the COVID virus, but I do control my own reaction to it. So I understand there's a fear that I'm going to miss out on this opportunity. There's probably a lot of disappointment, obviously, that you're in top shape, that you've qualified and you can't. There's other people that haven't qualified. How do you stay in the moment? How do you stay in the focus? And it has to do, again, with what we talked about earlier. It's about, okay, what is my purpose as an athlete? What is it that I really want to achieve within this sport, this thing that I'm really passionate about? And how can I go about resetting the goalposts to make sure that I get myself going towards that new goal whenever that date is set? There's a lot of periodization in sports where you try to peak at the right moment. And so sometimes you have to change your program and your calendar in order to meet that new timeline. And so people are going to have to readjust that. But it's obviously a scary thing for everybody. But for me, it's about getting back to people and saying, okay, connect with what you're trying to create, connect with your own qualities that you have that allow that to happen, and then go about trying to make that a reality.
Connect to the next question of Robert. I'm coaching a soccer team, and in soccer media, the media often says that the influence of a coach is minimal. What's your opinion on that? And what's the biggest influence on a team?
Well, I don't know. I think one that comes to mind for me is the idea of the way people filter information, the way we as human beings filter information. We filter, it's called our perception. It's our filter for data coming in, and we tend to have a perception that's based on what's important to me and how I feel about myself in certain situations. So as a coach, you have what we call stimulating norms and restrictive norms. A stimulating norm is something that says, yes, I can do it because I want to do this. I want to achieve this, and therefore I can do this. I'm going to go for it. And then there's a restrictive norm that tries to hold us back and say, yeah, but there's a risk, be careful, don't do it. The last time you did it, you failed. Don't want to look stupid. And that's the whole battle that we have on the edge of the comfort zone is, do I take the risk and come out of my comfort zone and try that knowing I might fail? It's likely you will fail the first time. Let's be honest, people. If you haven't made any mistakes recently, then you haven't tried anything new. So in order to get better at anything you're connected to, you got to step out of your comfort zone. Does mean risk. You are going to fail, but you're going to fail forwards. So this is the battle that's going on. So a good coach is managing those perceptions as well. So when a guy has a stimulating perception of himself, a stimulating norm that says, yes, I can, man, I support that guy with that stimulating norm. I keep going with him on that. I tell him exactly what he's saying and thinking because I'm on the same page with him. And then when someone has a restrictive norm that says they can't, then I challenge that norm. And I says, why can't you? And what's holding you back? What are the barriers? What's the reason why you can't do it now? And can we look at a plan to slowly, look at reverse engineering a way to get those barriers to be knocked down? And then we start getting back into those things I control, the process, the task, and the behavior. And if the person's really connected to that, they will. But, the golden rule for behavior change, people, to me, and anybody's asking about behavior change and what a coach can do in behavior, is that the player has to see it. People don't mind change. What they do mind is being changed. So if they feel that they're being changed and they don't understand why, they're not connected to it, then you're going to have short-term success by telling the person to do it because they're afraid. But as soon as that's gone, they're not going to change. So change only happens, or change in behavior only happens when the reward for change in the mind of the person changing is greater than the reward they have for not changing now. So you have to understand that find that reward for that person and get them to connect to it.
Nice.
So that's what a coach does. He helps people connect to their why.
Yeah, there are still some questions about, okay, is the same with mental coach. How do you see your position as a coach? But coming back to the purpose, I have another question about that. Let me see, where was it, Danny? Sorry about that. If you have your purpose, collective ambition figured out in a team, how do you handle people who don't get it or determine the purpose? Undermine
the purpose. Yeah, it's a great question, and I mean, there's no easy answer. I would say that the first thing is to understand their reason that they are resisting. That's a fear. There's a fear there of some nature that says, I don't want to participate in this collective ambition. I want to think about myself. A good coach tries to understand what that is by asking open questions and getting that person to have that discussion with them about what their reward is for not participating, for not being part of the collective. There's obviously a reward this person is getting for that. So that's an important element, is to understand the person, show empathy for them. One of the greatest, I think, rewards for any coach is when you don't give up on somebody on the initial resistance, but try to show empathy and understand that fear and try to get that person to know how important their contribution to the collective is. It's kind of like a race car without a part missing in the engine. You know, if we don't have you, we don't have your qualities, we don't have that uniqueness of you, and you're not part of this collective, then we're never going to be as strong as we were without you. I mean, with you on board. And so that's a big part of my discussion is, you know, what is motivating you not to be part of the collective? And of course, at a certain point, you have to agree that there's a disconnect between this person's objectives and ambitions and that of the team. And perhaps eventually, you know, you're going to have to leave. That person will have to leave the team, if so. I mean, there was a couple of situations in my coaching where I had very highly recognized and highly decorated players that were at a different life stage and were not prepared or in a position to do the work that I required of a team. And therefore, I had to let them go eventually because their purpose was elsewhere and their focus was elsewhere, with their family or their new job or something of that nature had taken over. So it happens. It happens, you have to say. But the first thing is, if you can get to a person that isn't on board at that point and you can click with them and connect with them, man, that connection will last a lifetime because they will really understand that you didn't give up on them, that you did listen, that you did understand them, that they did matter to you, that their contribution was meaningful, and that's the people that you have the most loyal relationships with going forward. So don't surrender yet on kids, especially kids. You got to stick with it.
Beautiful, beautiful. I have a question for you. What's your fondest memory of your championship?
Well, I talked about it a little bit earlier. I think the fondest memory is looking back, you know, and that feeling of reflection upon the journey that we took. The year we started to say, okay, what are we going to do and how are we going to get this, you know, to happen? And to see the journey and to see the growth in my players over the time. So when I see that picture at the end, or I see that video of us all celebrating, you know, I see the trophy and obviously the achievement, but I also see the growth curve that it took us to get there, not just in skill acquisition, but in, you know, just in pure happiness and joy, the confidence growth in these guys, the memories that it's created for them for a lifetime. I think that's the joy I get. That's where I look back with the most fondness, is that it's just a moment in time. I mean, we're people, right? We collect things. We love to collect stamps or coins or art. In my case, comic books and baseball cards. Big collection as a kid. But the thing we collect most are memories, right? We collect these memories of our life And we meet people we haven't seen in 10 years, and we could go right back to that memory, right, of how's your wife, and we can start right there, so that's the thing. It's about creating memories, joyful memories with each other by connecting and giving the best of ourselves to the environment and seeing that growth and knowing you played a role in it. Man, it just gives me that 𝒃𝒐𝒏𝒄𝒂𝒃 moment every time.
Saying that, how is your experience now at the moment in this lockdown for you with your family? You have a beautiful family, of course, but what are for you focusing on the positive things, not on the negative things?
Yeah, it's a challenge for me too. So sometimes I can definitely see the clouds instead of the sun. And at first, obviously, it's a big blow, obviously, to our industry as well, to the event industry. It's a big blow. So there's immediate fear of consequences that are going to happen, and it can paralyze you, right? It can just make you go and hide or go to your island and just be on your own a little bit and try to reflect on what you're going to do now. And a lot of fear, not all fear, but a lot of fear is a projection of a potential outcome that has not yet occurred. And that sometimes makes us stay in our comfort zone and do silly things by allowing that fear to paralyze us and to keep us from wanting to step outside of that comfort zone. And that's dangerous. I'm not saying you don't recognize the fear, but you don't allow it to control you. You give it the respect it deserves, but then you say, okay, how can I push back against this? What can I do to actually make a difference in my life and the lives of others? And then you start to think in those kinds of things, because your filter is now looking at opportunities. It's looking at potential to grow and to find new ways to evolve against this enormous adversity that we're all facing. And so it took me a few days before I started to get back into what I call my mission and start to connect to, okay, what difference can I make? I'm just one guy. This thing's all over the world. You know what? What am I going to do, right? And then I started to say, well, this is what I do. So how, I help people. I try to help people to knock down the barriers that are holding them back from their potential. How can I do that more often now that I'm not able to do events? And so I started to do these vlogs and learn how to do it. And it took me 15 takes the first time I did a vlog, and I was swearing and I was so annoyed. But I had a message, I had a mission. I wanted to get it out there. I wanted to provide hope. I wanted to provide growth opportunities for other people and for myself to see, Jesus, how can I get better at all this? And this is a new world for me. I mean, I'm 59 years old. So for me, this is a generation. I've got to keep up. I've got to keep up because it's so evolving. It's so dynamic, and it really kicks me in. So when I'm getting into this, I get into the flow. Are we in the flow, by the way, right now? I am. So it's just really fun, to try to look at ways in which I can grow and still spread my message. And this is one of the ways. And so I'm really happy everybody's here and loving your questions.
From all places, Vancouver,
Australia. I could stay here for hours,
So, yesterday, nobody knew about you from people who don't care about the baseball, but I'm very happy that a lot of people joined. Are there any other questions? Because I saw
one from Peter. It says, is it not the goal to make yourself redundant?
Sorry.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the greatest gifts of any manager is to make yourself redundant. Redundant meaning overbodig, as the Dutch say. But it is. It's the greatest thing you can do. But there's a journey that people take, and on the skill level. And what we try to do is bring players in, or I try to bring people in on a level and say, listen, if my skill is a 0 to 10, and I begin learning something, then I get a lot of instruction. And as I get better, I get, as a coach, I instruct people and tell them how to do it. As they get better, I start to convince them and give them confidence about them doing it. Now they get to a level where they're a 6 or 7. Then I start to discuss things with them because they're very good at what they do. So I include them. I can become much more participative, right? I go from directive style to participative style, and then start asking questions because I want to engage them in their passion. I want to see what they're really connecting to because they're getting really good and they can help me grow. And then they get to an 8 or 9 or 10, and then it's time to delegate. It's then saying, whoa, what am I going to tell you? You know everything about this. Hey, I know what I want. I want you to go take those 2 people and work with them. So I think the greatest gift you can do is as a coach is become redundant, because those are the most asked for coach. Somebody said, hey, Brian, if I'm redundant, then they're going to let me go. I said, listen, if you're that good that you can make people be completely autonomous, completely competent, have great relationships with your people, you will never suffer unemployment in your life, because people will want to have people like you.
Nice.
So
I'm thinking, what's your best advice for our Dutch coach of the soccer team, of the national soccer team?
Well, I personally think he's doing a heck of a job. I mean, he's using a great combination of youth. He's got back to the core about collective ambition as a key, and they're playing extremely well together. They seem to be tight knit. It's a big challenge, obviously, with the COVID situation surrounding them, to keep people engaged. And guys like to compete. Guys want to be competitive with each other. So I think he's doing a good job, and I would only say to him to do the same things that he's doing, is try to find out what drives people's passion. Where are they connected to? What do they want to achieve individually and collectively, and how can they take their qualities and use them to contribute to the total team? Because that's exactly what we have to have. And the Dutch are very good, but if we don't play as a team and we play as a bunch of individuals, you have no chance. So if you want, the 𝒔𝒔𝒆𝒆, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So he's got to unify them. A lot of egos.
Yeah. I see. Is it not in the nature with Belgian people, with the Dutch people, that maybe we are good on our journey to the final, but then we, like what we did in soccer in South Africa, of course, in the final, we didn't play with who we are. We played like the competitor, and we were afraid. So maybe connection with what we are suffering now at home, of course, is the feeling, of course. How do we get rid of the fear? How do we get rid of the fear?
Yeah, I don't know that you necessarily get rid of the fear. You just make a decision that you're not going to allow the fear to stop you from trying to create what you're trying to create. So it is a consistent discussion with yourself. And sometimes fear is a good thing. It's a moderator. It keeps you from driving your car through a red light. Fear is a good thing. It stops you from making silly decisions and sometimes it's not the right time to do what you need to do. And but fear in the long term holds you back and creates what we call the negative self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you're afraid to take action and you stay in your comfort zone, then you won't develop, and then you're going to have regrets for not having taken, the step to do it. Don't get me wrong. Stepping outside your comfort zone takes courage. But fear is going to always be there, but it's about the difference to say, I accept it, but I also know that fear does not control me. I know what does control me, the things that I want and desire to create in my life, and the qualities and values that I have as a human being, to let that guide me. That what I call mission-driven behavior is that saying, okay, listen, I know what I want. I know what I have as qualities and gifts. I know what I stand for as a human being, and I'm going to act with that as my compass and not get knocked off course every single time. It's that ripple effect of me being consistent and authentic with my behavior, consistent with other people, that people get influenced. So instead of allowing my environment to influence me all the time, which is fear, right? Whatever happens, I react to it. Instead, I say, listen, I know who I am. I know what I can do. I know what I want to achieve. And I'm going to go out there and start to put my own ripple effect on. I'm going to start to influence the environment in a good way. And that's the power that we have that we don't understand, is that, we don't control the reward and the result all the time, but we do control our behavior, and that's power. And that power should be used effectively, and not give in to other people's reactions to what we expect to happen, or the rainy situation, or all the distractions that come into our life from the environment, because shit's going to happen to all of us every single day. The difference between the winners and the losers is, how do I deal with it? How do I react to it? Do I allow it to control me and send me into my ego and scare me? Or do I push back and say, listen, that's maybe so, but this is who I am, and this is what I stand for, and I'm going to push back and say, this is what I want to create. I want to create an environment where people feel safe. I want to create an environment where people feel energized, where people feel happy. So ask yourself, how do you influence your environment, people? How do you go out there every day and make a difference? What is it that you're doing that's making people feel a little safer, a little happier? You know, it could be an email. It could be a phone call. It could be sending someone some flowers. It could be just smiling at somebody going down the road. It makes a difference. And these incremental ripple effects of people making a difference, because once you start doing that, the chance that other person will do it is far more likely. So authenticity activates authenticity in people. People feel safe. People feel calm. Then they act that way. They behave that way. Long answer.
Yeah, but wow, thank you, Peter Turina. I think it's about the same question as Willem has. What are your thoughts on sustaining the world champion level of success?
Well, I think if you use world champion as a destination, then you achieve it. If that's your focus, then obviously that's an extrinsic motivation, and that's obviously dangerous. What I'm talking about are intrinsic motivation. So I would use world champion as an adjective to kind of describe what are the behaviors of a world champion. Now, if I start to look at a world champion as behaviors, then I can get engaged by improving my behaviors, improving my tasks, improving my processes so that I behave like a world champion. And to me, that's the win, is when you behave like a world champion. Does it mean you're going to win a world championship? No, because there's a lot of other things you don't control. You don't control the opponent. You don't control the referee or the umpire, the obvious situation with the environment and weather or so forth. But you do control your own behaviors. And what does a world champion, what are the qualities of a world champion? Ask yourself that. Write it down. Look to which extent that matches with what you want to be, and then continue the journey behaving like a world champion.
Is it important to write it down?
I think it helps to bring it out, to bring it in front of you, is to say, okay, what are the qualities that I possess as a human being, and how do they fit in with my desire to be this world champion, to continue to excel in this team sport that I love. I mean, being a champion year in, year out requires a great deal of intrinsic motivation, because if you're only connected to this destination of being a world champion and you achieve it, then there's a feeling of, okay, now what? So I'm not guided by anything. I'm a bit blowing in the wind because the environment is telling me what I'm supposed to do next, rather than saying, hey, this is me. I'm always looking to grind. I'm always looking to improve in baseball. I want to learn one more good thing today. If I could give advice, look at your environment with an appreciative inquiry. Look at your environment through the filter of, what do you appreciate about today? What do you appreciate about the people you're with? We're too easy in finding fault with each other, or what's wrong with the day, what's wrong with this. And we could do so much better when we look through it through the eye. I always give my Dutch colleagues a hard time, and I mean this from my heart because it's my adopted country. I love you guys. But it's the only language I ever heard where you say, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning and someone comes up to you and says, "Hoe laat is it?" And you're like, what are you talking about? It's like, how early is it, dude? How early is it? Let's go, right? No, it's funny. Two language.
Two last questions. Before, I already see it's almost.
Thanks, Attila. Good seeing you again, man.
Vincent, if your ambition is to let the individuals grow and the team, then it's possible, essentially, for the coach to keep growing. Is it possible that you will never be redundant for the team and yourself as a coach?
No, I don't believe you ever are redundant. That's kind of a goal, to be redundant, because you want people to be independent. You want to be people autonomous. You want to be participative as a coach. You want people to be driven by their own ambition and their own intrinsic motivation. So as soon as they're able to do that, you can release them. But you're always there to support them, because they're also struggling with life, and they're also going to have shitty moments in their life and go into things that don't work. And they're going to need that helping hand. They're going to need that person that stimulates them and lets them see themselves for who they are and the great qualities that they have. So you never stop coaching people. You never stop reminding them of who they are and trying to build them up and continue to focus on those things that they really desire to do and the qualities they have to make it happen. So no, you're not really redundant, but that's really kind of what you're trying to make happen, is that person is autonomous. I mean, they've done some interesting research on intrinsic motivation. And it comes down to really three things, right? It's the idea that you're competent. So I'm growing and learning every day, that I keep stretching myself. The second is I'm autonomous. I have the freedom to succeed and fail. And And the third is relationships. I have meaningful relationships with people that care about me, and I make a difference in their lives. And if you have those things, then you're going to be pretty motivated, pretty happy in your work or wherever you're at.
Last question, and then we go to our takeaways. Hans, working in the field of sports and education, what do great coaches and great teachers have in common? That's one part of the question. And furthermore, are great coaches also great teachers, vice versa?
Yeah, I think there are great coaches that are great teachers, and there are great teachers that are great coaches. But there are some different skills that are involved with teaching that are different than coaching at times, and but there are certainly more similarities than differences. And I think I can't see the question you just read to me, though. I can't see where that is. Has it gone by already?
Hans coaches.
Oh yeah, Hans.
Working in the field.
Hans is my wife's boss. He's the head of the CEOs over there, so he knows a little bit about teaching and coaching as well. A great coach is also a great teacher. Well, I like to think when I was with you guys that I was doing a great job. So I have great teachers and great coaches. But it was much more challenging in terms of reaching people, because as a teacher, you're not always dealing with people that are as connected as they are to sports. So you have to find a way to reach that child or to reach that student by trying to find out what's driving them. And that can be difficult at first, because you have to create relationship of trust and be vulnerable with your people. But I think they have a lot more similarities than differences. So what do they have in common? They have patience. They have curiosity in common. They have a desire to be driven by their values and to have an impact on other people, and they really kick on seeing other people grow. So there's a lot of similarities. Is that kick on growth and knowing you played a difference. You know, it's not altruistic, huh? It's not like I don't get anything back. I get a lot back by knowing I'm making a difference, like helping people grow. So
I still see two questions. We can answer that after the webinar as well. So we take care of all the questions that you all have. So some takeaways, Brian. Okay. What is now very important to do in this lockdown? For me, the whole event speakers industry is to stand still. Maybe events will be organized in September. Maybe it's internationally, what I hear, it will be until the end of the year, of course. But different industries, of course. What can speakers do? What is your advice as a human being of it?
Well, again, you know, these are troubling times and so forth, but you should not underestimate the ripple effect that you have as an individual that can go out there and make a difference today. I mean, go out there and look and appreciate, you know, start with just appreciating three things. Train your mind to start looking at the positives, you know. Look at the rainbow and the clouds. Look at the greens and the blues, not the browns and the blacks. So try to appreciate three things today. Do it for about a month. And at the end of that month, I guarantee your brain's going to be retrained and to start thinking a lot more appreciative things, a lot more things that you can do to make a difference in a small effect, but that ripples out. So, create opportunities to provide you energy and happiness and fulfillment as well. Find out what it is that your qualities are and go out there and try to make a difference doing that thing. Lead with those qualities. Lead with that patience, that empathy for other people. That compassion. Lead with a smile. It makes a difference. It really does. Incrementally, this is what we need to do as 17 million people. As Premier Rutte has said, we need to do this together. We can't do it individually. So we have to acknowledge that the fear is there, but not let us control us so that we go out and buy 600 rolls of toilet paper. We got to go out there and look at it from a perspective, okay, what difference can I make today in the lives of those that I care about that make a difference to me? Mm-hmm. And do that. It's not rocket science. It's just about staying focused about what are your qualities, what do you stand for, what difference do you want to make? And then think about what you're personally going to start today to look like, to get into the flow, because the flow is that, right? It's on the edge of the comfort zone. It's that area where we say, okay, well, this is tough. I'm really being challenged, but I'm not going to give in to my fear. I'm going to go out and push this and go out there and be nice. And the first three people you smile don't smile back, and you go, oh, it's over. I hate it. This sucks. That's not the perseverance you need. You need to persevere. You need to understand that it's not you, it's them. They're the ones in fear right now. You need to stay on mission. So
thank you, Brian. Thank you so much for being in this webinar, for taking your time in
I had a blast.
Hiring all the people. It's always great to talk to you.
I had a blast.
Thank you so much for doing this with me. It was
Thank you, my friend.
Pleasure.
I had a great time.
For all the people who also enjoyed this, we are organizing next week some more webinars. Unfortunately, 2 in Dutch. I always say we have on Tuesday, 10 o'clock Central European Time, a webinar about what does change mean, with speakers Paul Smit. He's one of the most frequently asked speakers in the Netherlands. He is a comedian and a philosopher. And Arno Volkerts, he is a coach of change management. It will be also a lot of fun, but also a lot of inspiration. And on Thursday, we have a very unique performance. I brought together 3 normal guys who suddenly changed their lives. One was kidnapped for 607 days. 𝐼𝒥𝒂𝒌𝒆𝒓𝒔, he already joined in this webinar. Happy to have him here in this webinar. 𝒔𝒔𝒆𝒆, the guy who got imprisoned in Morocco without a reason. And the last guy, 𝒃𝒐𝒐𝒌𝒆𝒄𝒔, a beautiful guy who survived the attacks in Paris. Also at 10 on Thursday. Thank you for being here. The questions, if you still have questions for Brian Farley, please send them to our speakers bureau, info@assembleespeakers.com. And for sure, you are happy to answer these questions. Do you? Brian? You are not focused, my friend.
No, I'm reading everybody's stuff here, so I was getting into all the questions here. It's really cool.
Well, let's make an end shot, looking at each other.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Take care of your wife. Bye, buddy.